Welcome to Sacred Cow Shipyards, where no ship is safe from being taken down to its nuts and bolts. You know the really weird thing to me about the whole Warhammer 40,000 universe thing going on? It's not the fact that the leader of the humans is this dead, not dead, functionally demigod organism that consumes literal thousands of souls every day just to stay not quite dead and keep the lights on in a f***ing lighthouse. No, it's not that. It's not that there is literally an entire species whose concept of extracting themselves from a planet boils down to all of the organisms jump into vats of acid and their protoplasm is like shot up into space and gets reformed into other things, because that's not nightmarish at all. It's not the fact that you f***ing primates and your various alien analog species have somehow managed to build bipedal walking combat robots that are over 500 of your feet tall. And for some reason, y'all thought this was a good idea because, the bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical thing is like one of the least stable combat forms in the entire universe. But hey, big walking robots, am I right? It's not even that you goddamn squishies for some reason build these combat war machine things with projectile weapons that are the size of your houses and somehow have enough space to store multiple rounds in these combat vehicles. The big ones, the small ones, whatever. They shoot these ginormous rounds that they seem to have a limitless supply of. Did y'all create fucking pocket universes or something and shove the bullets in there or something? I have no idea. I mean, in fairness, there actually was a halfway not horrible movie, if you're into that kind of B-schlock stuff, that used this flat space concept to hide everything from cartridges to swords. So maybe Warhammer 40,000 has something similar. I don't know. Like I said in a previous episode, I am not actually that versed in the Warhammer 40,000 universe mythos, so I'm just winging it. And that's probably obvious to all of you actual Warhammer 40,000 universe geeks out there who are all like, oh yeah, those are totally not the scariest or horriblest or weirdest things in the 40,000 universe, because I don't know what he's talking about. He's just picking low-hanging fruit. And it's true. And honestly, what I'm about to tell you probably will not surprise or impress you either, but you're not really the audience of this channel, so I guess you're just going to have to deal with that. I'm sorry. Anywho, as myself, as the dockmaster of the Sacred Cow Shipyards, the thing that stands out to me as just plain f***ing weird are space hulks. No, amusingly enough, I'm not actually talking about large green organisms floating in space for some reason, although I guess some of the Warhammer 40k space hulks might actually be green. I don't know, maybe, who knows. All kinds of things happen in that universe. I don't know. I'm talking about the weird agglomeration of ships and detritus and junk and who knows what else that come together in this massive lump of just crap and apparently coast through the warp under some sort of tidal effect and occasionally pop out of warp and then occasionally pop back into warp. And it's all very random. It's all very strange. These things are not organic looking because they're made out of pieces of ships and whole ships and asteroids and rocks and I don't even know what else. But it is just plain random. And honestly, the way space hulks came about to be does not surprise me in the slightest bit. If you pay even the slightest bit of attention to a body of water or the vacuum of space or anything even remotely similar, you will notice that junk tends to attract junk. It just happens. There's probably some scientific explanation for it. I don't know it. But the fact is, if you take a body of water and you pour a whole pile of junk in it, and you distribute that junk evenly across the entire body of water, eventually all that junk's going to be in one big lump. Don't ask me why, don't ask me how, it just happens. Now, in terms of the space hulks, some of these things are actually big enough to have their own gravitational fields. So not only is there just weirdness going on where junk attracts junk, but in their case, literally junk literally attracts junk through gravitation. So that aspect doesn't surprise me. It's not the fact that space hulks exist, because we've got, 8, 9, 10 more species plying the f***ing warp and putting their ships in weird-ass places and doing weird-ass things with them and losing them and having them destroyed or shot out from underneath them or just disappearing or stuff. And all that stuff's going to come back up somewhere. And apparently the warp is more than happy to suck all that stuff up, smash it all together, reform it into this utter monstrosity, fill it with all kinds of nightmares, and just toss it back out into real space periodically and then suck it back up again, because who's going to stop it? I mean, it's the warp. It's kind of, yeah. Look at the other episode about how much f***ed up the warp is. But that's kind of the point. These things are literal nightmare vessels. These things are just Escher-esque, not adhering to the Newtonian concept of physics or space or anything. Disasters just floating on the drift. They get sucked in and out of the warp and carry all kinds of badness on board them. And hey, you want to know what the Imperium does? They fucking explore them. And I guess you kind of have to understand that the Imperium's in kind of this weird situation where they don't understand like most of the technology they use, but they can reproduce some of it. And then there's a significant chunk of technology that they neither understand nor can reproduce. So that technology eventually wears out and breaks, and they can't make new ones. And that's kind of complicated. So these Space Hulk things are basically warp-enabled time capsules, in that some of the vessels at the cores of these Space Hulks have been around for literally thousands of years and have fresh, I guess fresh isn't the right word, they have untouched examples of the technology that the Imperium can no longer understand or reproduce. And if the Imperium can recover those pieces of technology, maybe things will get better, even though the grim, dark future of Warhammer 40,000 pretty much eliminates anything ever getting better, ever. That's not the point. The point is that the Imperium believes that if they can get on board these Space Hulks and liberate the technology, that things might get better. I mean, they're wrong, but they believe this, and frankly, the Imperium is mostly run on belief, so sure, why not? Well, the why not basically boils down to a lot of these Space Hulks are actually deliberately used as transport vehicles by the Chaos Marines, by the Orcs, and by the Tyranids, to name three significant factions that hate the Imperium and would rather it died. There's also demons and various other things piggybacking on these Space Hulks, because why not? These things blip in and out of the warp, so they're going to get infected by everything that exists and doesn't exist in the Imperium. So yeah. Wow, there is a lot of bad shit on Space Hulks. In fact, there is so much bad shit on Space Hulks that exploring and clearing them are reserved for Terminators only. And for clarification, I am not talking about the time-traveling, human mother-assassinating robots. This is where we get into another weird aspect of the Warhammer 40k universe, where basically your leaders are just bigger than everyone else. Apparently the Emperor is just enormous, which is weird because apparently actually humans have an upper limit on how big they can get, but they cheated around the edges, so we'll just ignore that for the moment. So you basically start with the Imperial Guard, who are literally Mark 1 Mod 0 humans. They are grist for the massive blood-filled carrion mills that occupy the entire Warhammer 40,000 universe. They're just normal human beings who happen to be armed with very powerful flashlights. It's very unfortunate. When you move up from there, you get to the actual Space Marines. Now, actual Space Marines are kind of special and different. They get chosen at an early age, I think pre-puberty or whatever it is you humies call it, and they get augmented along the way. There's gene splicing, there's organ transplanting, there's biomechanical implants, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. And they end up being kind of big, kind of strong, and outfitted in, I guess it's technically power armor, although it's not very powerful armor in relation to other things. And the other things is what we're getting to. There's the Space Marines and their Space Marine armor. They are the backbone of the Imperium. They're the ones that everyone hears of when you hear about Space Marines. And then there are the Terminators. Terminators are Space Marines, yes, technically, but they are in no shit power armor. This is the kind of armor that could not only withstand a close proximity nuclear blast, but it could also just like rip apart the housing of a nuclear reactor with its own robotic hands. And these are the kind of suits that are necessary to explore, examine, and recover material from a Space Hulk. And Terminator suits, by the way, are one of those pieces of technology that the Imperium not only does not understand, but cannot reproduce. So, yes, let's go ahead and throw these guys into a meat grinder when we can't replace the suits that they're wearing in order to recover maybe some technology that we couldn't make otherwise. Or this stupid thing will blink back into the warp and take all of them with it, and all of those Terminators will be exposed to literal centuries of torture and torment at the hands of the demons who live in the warp, because that makes perfect sense. I mean, the part that I really don't understand about this whole thing is that the Imperium literally has the technology to atomize planets. It's called the Exterminatus. I don't know, weird Latin-esque word. But they reserve that nonsense for heretical planets, planets that turn their back on the Emperor, whatever. Instead of, using it for actual threats to the Imperium, like literal massive flying fortresses that are full of Tyranids and Chaos Marines, and they don't even know what else that can deposit them wherever they end up whenever they pop out of the warp. Oh no! Instead of just blessed nuking this thing repeatedly until it just vanishes, they're going to send like individual people in these happy little spacesuits on board this stupid thing to figure out what's on board it. And then those stupid little people get torn apart and get turned into more flesh that the Tyranids or the Chaos Marines or whoever the hell else get to play with. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious how much the Imperium does not care about individual human life, but, I mean, I have a hard time caring about individual human life my own self, because, y'all squishies are just, not very durable. But wow, that's just a special level of, like, you don't matter, so go away and die. And worse than that, the tech you're wearing doesn't matter. The irreplaceable tech you're wearing doesn't matter in the quest of maybe, possibly, probably not finding better tech. Yeah, it's a good thing the Imperium is a cult. And that's all from Sacred Cow Shipyards. Please be advised that any ship left on the dock for more than 24 hours will be compressed to a cube. Have a good day.